I never imagined the day would come when I would stand in the boardroom and watch my boss, the arrogant man who once told me I was nothing without his company, pack up his things and walk out of the very empire he built. But that day came, and I'll tell you how it happened. When I first got the job, I was excited. The company was well known, the pay was good, and the opportunities seemed endless. But it didn't take long before the glitter faded. My boss was brilliant, yes, but his arrogance could fill a stadium. He thrived on belittling people. During meetings, he cut off staff mid-sentence. He took credit for our ideas. He treated us as though we were lucky to breathe the same office air as him. One afternoon, after I had worked 2 straight weeks preparing a major proposal, he tossed my file aside without reading. Days later, I saw him present the same proposal to the board, word for word, slide for slide, as though he had created it. When he caught my eye across the table, he smirked. After the meeting, I approached him quietly. "Sir, that was my proposal." He leaned back in his chair, looked at me with cold eyes, and said, "You're nothing without this company. Remember that." Those words seared into my chest. For days, they echoed in my head. I wanted to quit, but something inside me refused to let him have the final word. That night, I pulled out a notebook. Instead of writing complaints, I asked myself a strange question. What if I started acting like the company depended on me, not him? That was the shift. From that day, I became intentional. I poured myself into work, not for him, but for myself. I built systems that saved hours of wasted time. I quietly trained junior staff to handle tasks better than he ever bothered to teach them. I nurtured client relationships so deeply that whenever they thought of success, they thought of me. The strangest thing happened. People began bypassing him. Clients asked for me directly. Staff came to me with problems instead of knocking on his door. Slowly, the office energy shifted. Without announcing it, I had become the heart of the company. My boss didn't notice at first. He was too busy basking in his own ego. But arrogance has a way of exposing itself. He started making reckless decisions, over-promising to clients, cutting corners, shouting at board members. I didn't fight him. I simply kept working, quietly documenting everything. Every lost client, every mishandled deal, every idea he rejected that later turned into success. I wrote it down. The turning point came on a gray Thursday morning. We received word that one of our biggest clients had canceled their contract. It shook the company. For the first time, the board called an emergency meeting without his request. That day, I walked into the boardroom with my notebook. The air was thick. My boss entered in his usual fashion, adjusting his tie with an air of superiority. He gave a speech about how the client was unreasonable and how he already had new strategies in place. But this time, the board didn't nod blindly. Their eyes kept drifting to me. Finally, one of them asked, "Do you have anything to add?" My boss laughed. What could she possibly add? She's just emotional. That was the last straw. I stood up, opened my notebook, and began to speak. Not with anger, not with noise, just facts. I laid out the timeline of his reckless decisions. I showed how many clients had left because of arrogance, not incompetence. I revealed the proposals I had submitted that he had dismissed, only to later use himself. I pointed to the systems I had quietly built that were keeping the company afloat. The room went silent. My boss shifted uncomfortably, but the evidence was undeniable. One of the senior board members leaned forward, his voice calm but firm. He is the only reason we still have a company. The vote was quick. My boss was asked to step down. You see, the board had the legal power to remove a CEO. And with all the evidence and his reputation crashing, they voted him out. He tried to protest, but the damage was already done. His arrogance had dug a grave, and my consistency had filled it with stones. I'll never forget the moment he walked out of that office. For years, he had made me feel small, unworthy, invisible. But now, he was the one invisible. The board named me interim head until a permanent replacement was found. Colleagues clapped me on the back, clients sent emails of relief. The entire company seemed to exhale, as though a storm had finally passed. Looking back, I realized something powerful. I didn't sack my boss by shouting louder than him. I didn't scheme or gossip. I didn't fight fire with fire. I sacked him by becoming the one thing arrogance cannot defeat: indispensable. I turned myself into the heartbeat of the company, and when the body had to choose between the arrogant head and the steady heart, it chose the heart. So when people ask me, how did you sack your boss from his own company? I tell them the truth. I didn't push him out. I simply built so much value that the company couldn't live without me, and it couldn't survive with him. And that, my friend, is how the impossible became my reality.